Hey, this is Stephen with Answer Me This, and we've got a great question today, and it goes something like this. When I talk to my friends about Christianity and about the gospel, I often get the same response or the same question. Why is it that God began the gospel in such a small corner of the earth in Palestine? And it's taken thousands of years for this message to get out to the ends of the world. There's millions and billions of people who've never had the chance to hear about the possibility of salvation through faith in Jesus Christ. Isn't that unfair? Isn't it unjust that God has done it in this way? And that's a good question. It's a hard question. And it's one that we've probably all wrestled with in some form or another. And the answer to this question is really in the question itself. It revolves around these words, fairness and justice. Is it fair? Is it just that God has not given the same opportunity to all people to hear about Jesus? Or is he being unfair? Is he being unjust? What do these words mean? Fairness and justice have to do with giving someone what they are owed or what they deserve, what is their right. So we're not talking about, is God withholding from them something good or something that they might like or something even merciful, a gift of some kind. No, we're talking about justice. Is God withholding from something from them that they are owed or that they deserve or that is their right to have? And so that begs the question then. What does man deserve? What is he owed? Well, according to the Bible, and now here's where it becomes difficult to make a convincing argument to our non-Christian friends because we are answering this question from a biblical worldview. So don't be surprised if they don't come along with us. But be patient, be kind, and just explain our worldview. And according to the biblical worldview, in Romans 3:23, it says, "For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God." And in Romans 6:23 it says the wages of sin is death. So what does man deserve? According to the Bible at least, all men deserve death, hell, judgment, and separation from God. But of course I can imagine an objection coming at this point in which our friend says, but wait a second. How can God expect us to believe in him if we've never heard of him? Or how could he expect us to keep his laws that no one has ever told us about? Millions, billions of people have never had a Bible in their hands. They haven't had the opportunity to read God's laws. Isn't that unfair? And yeah, I think that seems pretty unfair. I understand the objection. But thankfully, the Apostle Paul helps us answer this question in Romans chapter 1 and in Romans chapter 2. I'll just read one short verse for you from Romans chapter 1 where Paul gives us a sense of an answer. He says in Romans 1, verse 18 through 20, "For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who suppress the truth in unrighteousness, because that which is known about God is evident within them. For God made it evident to them. For since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes, his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood through that which has been made, so that they are without excuse." So the argument or the objection, how could God expect us to believe in him if we've never heard of him? Paul says, there is no such person. He's so abundantly clear in nature that you literally have to suppress the knowledge of God in order to deny him. And that's why we are all without excuse on the day of judgment. Okay, but then comes the second objection. Okay, let's just say that God is abundantly clear in nature and we can see him and come to the conclusion that a designer God exists. How can I possibly be expected to keep his laws if I've never had a Bible in my hands? Well, thankfully, Paul answers this for us in the very next chapter, in which he says, the law of God is actually written on every man's heart. Why is it that humans have a sense of morality? Of all the creatures in the world, humans, as far as we know, are the only creature to feel a sense of shame and guilt, who have a sense of right and wrong. Why? Because God's laws are written on our heart. We know when we've done wrong, and we know when we have sinned. So the reason that man will stand under judgment and is by nature going to stand under judgment is because we reject the God that we know in creation, and we do things that even we know are wickedness without ever having to read a Bible. So the question of fairness and the question of justice are not really in our favor. As a matter of fact, R.C. Sproul used to say, look, if you ever run into God, don't ask him for justice. Ask him for grace. And that really brings us to the beauty of Christianity and of the gospel, because it's all of grace. And that's where we want this conversation to lead anyway with our non-Christian friend, right? Because grace has almost the opposite meaning of justice. If justice means getting something you deserve, grace means getting something you did not deserve in a good way, like a blessing. Okay? And that's what Christianity is. The gospel is grace. So there is a kind of injustice in Christianity, if you want to be honest, a kind of unfairness. But it's not that guilty men go to hell without the opportunity of salvation. As unfortunate as that is justice. The real unfairness or injustice of Christianity is that guilty men are spared the justice they deserve by the grace of God. The real injustice of Christianity is that Jesus, the innocent, died on the cross for guilty men. And after he died, he rose. And after he rose, he sent his disciples into all the world to offer this gift of grace to all men, so that they too might receive a gift which they have not earned, namely eternal life. So, as I said, this is difficult to communicate to our non-Christian friends because we're really answering this question from a very different worldview and our perspective on who God is and who man is. Humanists, and humanism is really the prevailing worldview in Europe, humanists will always be shocked by the fact that all men are not saved, whereas a Christian will be shocked that any man is saved. A humanist will accuse God of unfairness and injustice, whereas a Christian will be blown away by the fact that he has received undeserved mercy. Well, those are just some thoughts on the topic. I hope it gets you thinking, and look forward to hearing more of your questions. Send them to us by email or in the comment section below this video. Have a great day. Thanks.